G'day! Welcome to On the Road with Captain Pete. I'd like to share with you some very special songs and stories that I've written and some of my favourite Australian bush poetry. I hope you'll join with me singing and telling stories and poems. Maybe you'll be inspired to write some of your own. I look forward to meeting you on the road soon. This is a very special song. It's so important to plan for the future of our planet. Our trees, animals and waterways deserve looking after. I hope you can join in the chorus and hopefully teach it to someone and pass the message on. $500 from now, plant a tree today, put it in the ground. You gotta water it, nurture it, watch it grow. Be gentle with the earth, cause we all know for 500 years from now, make a plan today and take it to town. We want rivers to run true, trees to be tall. You gotta think big and not too small. We want water to sparkle, and fish to swim, and birds to fly high, and people to grin, and trees to be tall, and forests to grow. You gotta think big and let it flow. You think 500 years from now, plant a tree today and put it in the ground. You gotta water it, nurture it, and watch it grow. Be gentle with the earth, cause we all know that it's your great, 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 great grandkids. See what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids. Do what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids who love what you do. Now, heard a politician just the other day, he said,
plan for 3 years, now that should be okay. Let's just dig a huge hole in the ground.
See how much uranium can be found. We'll turn the sky purple and make the earth explode.
Lots of money in banks, now that's the way to go. Cause all we pollies care about is the next election plan.
500 years, they don't understand. You gotta think 500 years from now, plant a tree today and put it in the ground. You gotta water it, nurture it, and watch it grow. Be gentle with the earth, cause we all know that it's your great, 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 great grandkids. See what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids. Do what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids. Love what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids.
500 years
See what you
from
do,
now,
it's your great, 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 great grandkids.
500
But do what you do, it's your great, 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 great grandkids.
500 years
Love what you
from
do,
now,
it's your great, 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 great grandkids.
500
See what you do 500 years from now. 500 years from now. 500 years from now starts today. In 1854, the harshly treated miners at the Eureka Stockade in Ballarat fought for what they believed in. When you hear my song, sing the chorus with me and lift the roof. attacked on the Ballarat mine in 1854. Trying to earn some justice, we had to fight the law. Rebels took up arms and stood together back to back. Battle then began and the miners were attacked. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. 100 years pass by and their spirit never dies. We'll fight in what we believe, the truth can never lie. If you have a cause, find out right from wrong. Old ballards never die, they just go on and on. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. 100 years pass by and their spirit never dies. We'll fight in what we believe, the truth can never lie. If you have a cause, find out right from wrong. Old ballards never die, they just go on and on. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. And it's hey-ho, bullets start to fly. And it's hey-ho, down in the Ballarat mine. Down in the Ballarat mine, down in the Ballarat mine. One of my favourite poems is Thomas E. Spencer's How McDougal Topped the Score. Listen to the poem very carefully. Do you think it's a true story? A peaceful spot is Piper's Flat, the folk that live around. They keep themselves by keeping sheep and turning up the ground. But the climate is erratic and the consequences are the struggle with the elements is an everlasting war. We plough and sow and harrow and then sit down and pray for rain. And then we all get flooded out and we'd have to start again. But the folk are now rejoicing as they ne'er rejoiced before, for we played Molongo at cricket and McDougal topped the score. Molongo had a head on it and challenged us to play a single innings match for lunch, the losing team to pay. We weren't great guns at cricket, but we couldn't well say no. So we all began to practice and we let the reaping go. We scoured the flats for 10 miles round to muster up our men, but when the list was totalled, we could only number 10. Then up spoke Big Tim Brady. He was always slow to speak, and he said, "What price McDougal, who lives down at Cooper's Creek?" So we sent for old McDougal, and he stated in reply that he'd never played at cricket, but he'd half a mind to try. He couldn't come to practice, he was getting in his hay, but he guessed he'd show the beggars from Molongo how to play. Now McDougal was a Scotsman, and a canny one at that, so he started into practice with a paling for a bat. He got Mrs. Mac to bowl to him, but she couldn't run at all. So he trained his sheepdog Pincher how to scout and fetch the ball. Now Pincher was no puppy. He was old and worn and grey. But he understood McDougal and accustomed to obey. When McDougal cried out, "Fetch it!" he would fetch it in a trice. But until the word was "drop it," he would grip it like a vice. And each succeeding night they played until the light grew dim. Sometimes McDougal struck the ball. Sometimes the ball struck him. Each time he struck, the ball would plough a furrow in the ground. And when he missed, the impetus would turn him 3 times round. The fateful day arrived at last, the day that was to see Mulongo bite the dust or Piper's flat knocked up a tree. Mulongo's captain won the toss and sent his men into bat. They gave some leather hunting to the men of Piper's flat when the ball sped to where McDougal stood, firmly planted in his track. He shut his eyes and turned him round and stopped it with his back. The highest score was 22. The total, 66, when Brady sent a Yorker down and scattered Johnson's sticks. Then Piper's flat went into bat for glory and renown, but like the team before them, their wickets tumbled down. 9 wickets down for 17, and 50 more to win. Our captain heaved a sigh and sent McDougal in. £10 to 1, you'll lose it, cried a barracker from town. But McDougal cried, I'll take it, mon, and he planted the money down. He girded up his moleskins and in a self-reliant style threw off his hat, his coat and boots and faced the bowler with a smile. He held the bat the wrong side out, and Johnson with a grin stepped lightly to the bowling crease and he sent a wobbler in. McDougal spooned it softly back and Johnson waited there, but McDougal crying, Fetch it, started running like a hare. Mulongo shouted, Victory, he's out as sure as eggs, when Pincher started through the crowd and ran through Johnson's legs. He seized the ball like lightning, then he ran behind a log, and McDougal kept on running while Mulongo chased the dog. They chased him up, they chased him down, they chased him round, and then he darted through the slip rail as the scorer shouted, 10! McDougal puffed, Mulongo swore, excitement was intense. The scorer marked down 20, Pincher cleared a barbed wire fence. Let us hit him, shrieked Mulongo, brain the mongrel with a bat. Run it out, good old McDougal, yelled the men of Piper's flat. And McDougal kept on jogging, and then Pincher doubled back, and the scorer counted 40 as they raced across the track. McDougal's legs were going fast, Mulongo's breath was gone, but still Mulongo chased the dog, and McDougal struggled on. When the scorer shouted, 50! Then they knew the chase could cease, and McDougal gasped out, Drop it, as he dropped within his crease. Then Pincher dropped the ball, and as instinctively he knew discretion was the wiser plan, he disappeared from view. And as Mulongo's beaten, exhausted men, exhausted lay around, we raised McDougal shoulder high and bore him from the ground. We bore him to McGuinness's, where lunch was ready laid, and we filled him up with whisky punch, for which Mulongo paid. We drank his health in bumpers, and we cheered him 3 times 3. Hooray! And when Molongo got its breath, Molongo joined the spree. And the critics say they never saw a cricket match like that, when McDougal broke the record in the game at Piper's Flat. And the folk are all a-jubilating as they never did before, 'cause we played Molongo at cricket and McDougal topped the score. I just love sitting on the banks of the swampy Plains River at GI, out near Cancoban in New South Wales, just looking at the beautiful snowy mountain range where the air is so crisp and so clear. In the city, in the smog, pack your car and take your rod to the mountain. We will drive where the air is fresh and the birds survive. If you're a dreamer, not hard to see. Wombat holes, mountain streams, see the sunset through the trees. Peace and quiet in the evening breeze. Kosciuszko mountains calling me. Fishing by the swampy river, that's where I'll be. Sleeping at the Keeble hut, just by the stream. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Don't need money, don't need force. Be yourself, have your thoughts. When you're working, you don't wanna be. Let your mind wander, you will see. Let's go there. Kosciuszko mountains calling me. Fishing by the swampy river, that's where I'll be. Sleeping at the Keeble hut, just by the stream. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Kosciuszko mountains calling me. Fishing by the swampy river, that's where I'll be. Sleeping at the Keeble hut, just by the stream. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Lock fire at night and feeling free. Lock fire at night and feeling free.
Here's a great poem that was written when the humble pushbike was a brand new invention, although, way back then, they were called penny farthings. This is Banjo Patterson's poem, Mulga Bill's Bicycle. 'Twas Mulga Bill from Eaglehawk that caught the cycling craze. He turned away the good old horse that served him many days. He dressed himself in cycling clothes, resplendent to be seen. He hurried off to town and bought a shining new machine. And as he wheeled it through the door with an air of lordly pride, the grinning shop assistant said, "Excuse me, can you ride?" "See here, young man," said Mulga Bill, "from Walgett to the sea, from Conroy's Gap to Castlereagh, there's none can ride like me. I'm good all round at everything, as everybody knows. Although I'm not one to talk, I hate a man that blows. But riding is my special gift, my chiefest sole delight. Just ask a wild duck, can it swim? A wild cat, can it fight? There's nothing closed in hair or hide, or built of flesh or steel. There's nothing walks or jumps or runs, on axle, hoof or wheel. But what I'll sit, while hide will hold, and girth straps that are tight. I'll ride this here two-wheeled concern, right away, straight at sight." 'Twas Mulga Bill from Eaglehawk that sought his own abode, that perched above the Dead Man's Creek, beside the mountain road. He turned the cycle down the hill and mounted for the fray, but ere he'd gone a dozen yards, it bolted clean away. It left the track and through the trees just like a silver streak. It whistled down the awful slope towards the Dead Man's Creek. It shaved a stump by half an inch. It dodged a big white box. The very wallaroos in fright went scrambling up the rocks. The wombats hiding in their caves dug deeper underground as Mulga Bill, as white as chalk, sat tight to every bound. It struck a stone and gave a spring that cleared a fallen tree. It raced beside a precipice as close could be. And then Mulga Bill let out one last despairing shriek. Ah! It made a leap of 20 feet into the Dead Man's Creek. 'Twas Mulga Bill from Eaglehawk that slowly swam ashore. He said, "I've had some narrow shaves and lively rides before. I've rode a wild bull round a yard to win a £5 bet. But this was the most awful ride that I've encountered yet. I'll give that two-wheeled outlaw best. It's shaken all me nerve to feel it whistle through the air and plunge and buck and swerve. It's safe at rest in Dead Man's Creek. We'll leave it lying still. A horse's back is good enough henceforth for Mulga Bill." I was rehearsing for a bush dance with my son Todd and my good friend Howard. We were in an old shearing shed near Glenrowan in Victoria. Some children arrived and sat down to watch us practice. When they left behind one important thing: a baby in a pram. Well, we started from Bethanga. Soon we're on our way. We headed for Glenrowan to see the horses play. Sang for all the riders, children were there too. The fire's burning brightly and the port was warm and true. And the baby in the shearing shed was smiling at the band. Banjo, lead and mandolin and sticks were tapped by hand. Played till early morning, the cooks there were the best. The baby in the shearing shed was smiling with the rest. Well, we got up in the morning, watched the horses' fine display.
We disappeared at lunchtime when we bid them up good day. We pulled into Glenrowan, the sun was on our backs. We played a little music before we made our tracks, and the baby in the shearing shed was smiling at the band. Banjo, lead and mandolin and sticks were tapped by hand. Played till early morning, the cooks there were the best. The baby in the shearing shed was clapping with the rest. And the baby in the shearing shed was smiling at the band. Banjo, lead and mandolin and sticks were tapped by hand. Late till early morning, the cooks there were the best. The baby in the shearing shed was clapping with the rest. The baby in the shearing shed was smiling with the rest. The baby in the shearing shed, she thought we were the best.
Edward Harrington wrote this wonderful poem called Morgan about a boobook owl and the last days of the infamous bushranger, Mad Dan Morgan. When Morgan crossed the Murray to the Peachel Bar and Doom, a sombre, silent shadow rode with him through the gloom. The wild things of the forest slunk from the outlaw's track, and the boobook croaked the warning, "Go back! Go back! Go back!" It woke no answering echo in Morgan's blackened soul, and onward through the darkness he rode towards his goal. An evil man was Morgan, a price was on his head. The simple bush folk whispered his name with very dread. A cold and callous killer, he killed for killing's sake. Before the fierce Dan Morgan, the bravest man might quake. Past swamp and creek and gully, and settler's lone abode, towards the station homestead, the grim Dan Morgan rode. And still that hooded horseman, that Morgan could not see, watched by the wild bush creatures, rode close beside his knee. Before them in a clearing, a drover's campfire burned. That phantom rode with Morgan and turned when Morgan turned, and loud the boobook's warning came on the cold night air. Go back, Dan Morgan, beware, beware, beware. He reached the station homestead. Into the hall he strode, and on his evil features the flickering lamplight glowed. "Into one room," he thundered, "bring me a glass of grog, and if any disobey me, I'll shoot 'em like a dog." With pistols cocked and ready, dark-eyed and beetle-browed, before the famous outlaw, the bravest hearts were cowed. All night with loaded pistols, he dozed and muttered there. All night the evil shadow stood close behind his chair. The brave Scots girl MacDonald, a lass who knew no fear, slipped out, unseen by Morgan, to warn the homesteads near. And in the hours of darkness, before the break of dawn, around the fierce Dan Morgan, the fatal net was drawn. Daybreak upon the Murray, and the morning mists were gone. The magpies sang their mantins, and the river murmured on. When Morgan left the homestead, and neared the stockyard gate, he heard the boobook's warning, and he turned, but turned too late. For Quinlan pressed the trigger as Morgan swung around, and he sent the grim bushranger blaspheming to the ground. So fell the dread Dan Morgan in 1865, in death as much unpitied as hated when alive. He lived by blood and plunder, an outlaw to the end. In life he showed no mercy, in death he left no friend. And all who seek to follow in Morgan's evil track should heed the Bubbook's warning. Go back, go back, go back! This next song was inspired by the courageous and emotional rescue of Todd Russell and Brant Webb in 2006 from the Beaconsfield mine in Tasmania. It's a song which is a tribute to all concerned, especially the rescuers and the people of Beaconsfield.
Beaconsfield miners sitting in a hole, telling stories 'cause they've got nowhere to go. Sitting in the dark, putting on a show. They were Beaconsfield miners in a hole. My legs are pinned, Brand flick on the lighter. Larry's gone for help, has the courage of a fighter. Not dying here, 'cause our families are brighter. We're Beaconsfield miners in a hole. We made a pact, we're here for each other. For the love of family, we have to be like brothers. If I could change the past, I'd spend it with my lover. We're Beaconsfield miners in a hole. Dog utes and hunting, Holden they are true. Ford sailing, chalk and cheese, how can I talk to you? Tongue kiss to settle down, family strength is true. We're Beaconsfield miners in a hole. Letters on my overalls, on my ciggy pack. Firing the rescue blast, there is no going back. With Gill and Flanagan, keeping the man on track. We're Beaconsfield miners in a hole. Weight of the world, sitting on my shoulder. Talking with me, mate, will we get much older? The damp and the cramp, and the blasting's getting bolder. We're Beaconsfield miners in a hole. Spotlights and satellite, the world holds its breath. Shook hands through a hole, the great escape from death. Clock off our tags, start life afresh. We were Beaconsfield miners in a hole. Goodbye to Larry, goodbye Richard too. Never forget, we owe a lot to you. Solid as a rock, you know just what to do. We were Beaconsfield people through and through. Beaconsfield miners sitting in a hole, telling stories now everywhere we go. Sitting in the spotlight of our own TV show. We were Beaconsfield miners in a hole. We were Beaconsfield miners sitting in a hole. Now we tell our story everywhere we go. sitting in the spotlight of our own TV show. We were Beaconsfield miners in a hole. We were Beaconsfield miners in a hole. We were Beaconsfield miners in a hole.
The following stories are all true. I loaded up Gus, a talking Kombi van. He's like a little house on wheels. And I took Harry the dog and Mudpoo on an adventure holiday, travelling from Bethanga to Harvey Bay. We wrote in our diary every day and drew lots of pictures, which we used as inspiration to create the book, The True Adventures of Mudpoo. Maybe you've read it. I put a few of the Mudpoo adventure stories onto this CD. I hope you enjoy listening to them. Adventure 1, Mudpoo and the roller coaster. They were getting very close. Mudpoo and Harry knew the best roller coaster was in Queensland. The Gold Coast was full of adventure parks. When they arrived in Queensland, everyone cheered. Hooray! Hooray! When Gus stopped at SeaWorld Adventure Park, they were ready to have fun. Everyone patted Gus. "Well done, you made it here," they said, and Gus beamed and felt proud. "Captain Pete and I have been on the roller coaster before," said Harry. "It's scary. At first it goes slow, and then it goes up, 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 and then wham! Down as fast as a rocket." Harry's face lit up as he tried to tell Mudpoo there was no need to be nervous. The dolphins and sea lions put on a wonderful show. They all watched in amazement. "Oh, they understand everything their trainer says to them," said Captain Pete. "Hey, look over there," said Mudpoo. "Where?" asked Harry. "Over there. It's the roller coaster," said Mudpoo. It was so big that the roller coaster could be seen from very far away. Even Gus, who was in the car park, could see it. When the last sea lion and dolphin waved goodbye, they walked to the roller coaster. "Don't be scared, Mudpoo," said Harry. "It's huge and fast and goes upside down and it feels like you could fall out." Somehow, this didn't reassure Mudpoo very much at all. As their turn got closer, Captain Pete looked kindly at Mudpoo. "Oh, you'll be okay. Just close your eyes if it becomes too scary." Mudpoo didn't say a word. "Hop in, it's your turn," said the smiling attendant. Harry, Mudpoo and Captain Pete sat in the front seat. Some other people sat in the seat behind them. As soon as they were safely strapped into their seats, the roller coaster began to move. Slowly at first, the roller coaster climbed up, up and up. They could see Gus far away. He was a tiny speck in the car park. Captain Pete smiled confidently at Mudpoo as it climbed as high as it could go. Suddenly, whoosh! It took off like a mad train out of control. It was going to crash when, zoom! It suddenly took a sharp turn to the right, then wham! Another sharp turn to the left, and then it climbed even higher. "Oh no!" cried Harry, burying his head in his paws. A terrified Captain Pete screamed, "Whoa!" Mudpoo stayed calm. The roller coaster went round and round and round in circles, slowing down until it very gently came to a stop. Shaky and with very wobbly knees, Captain Pete and Harry climbed out. Mudpoo confidently stepped out and looked at them both, and with a huge grin, he said, "Can we do that again?" Harry and Captain Pete looked at each other. Their heads were spinning. and they were holding their tummies. "Oh no, Mudpoo, not today." Adventure 2, Mudpoo and the Bubblegum. It was morning and the start of another exciting day. After a yummy breakfast near the ocean, Harry and Mudpoo brushed their teeth. Then they happily helped Captain Pete pack up their camp and neatly place everything inside Gus. The sun was shining. It was going to be a very hot day. "Oh, who feels like an ice cream?" said Captain Pete. Gus stopped at the very next ice cream shop. "I'll have the ice cream with the bubblegum in the middle," shouted Mudpoo excitedly, and Harry nodded vigorously in agreement. With ice creams on board, Gus was chugging up the road without a worry in the world. Captain Pete was so happy he sang a little song to himself. "It's a happy, happy day. We're on our way. It's a happy day, we're on our way." Mudpoo sat on the back seat next to Harry. They had both eaten their ice creams and had come to the best part, the juicy bubblegum centre. Harry was carefully chewing his bubblegum when he turned to see Mudpoo looking very concerned. You see, Mudpoo had chewed his bubblegum until it was just right. "Oh, I'd better check the bubblegum," thought Mudpoo, and he popped the sticky ball in his fingers and gave it a squeeze. But instead of being able to roll the bubblegum back into a ball, each finger had bubblegum firmly stuck to it. "That's odd," thought Mudpoo to himself, who knew the best thing to do was to wipe his fingers on his shirt. "That will fix it." Now there was bubblegum stretching from Mudpoo's shirt right up to each finger. "Now look here," said Mudpoo, looking very crossly at the bubblegum. "Oh, look where?" replied the bubblegum. Mudpoo was so cross he wasn't even a little bit surprised that the bubblegum could talk. "I'm the stickiest bubblegum in the land, and I'm the messiest." Mudpoo looked concerned. "I know what'll fix you," he thought. "I'll wipe you on my trousers." So Mudpoo wiped and wiped as hard as he could until his hands, shirt and pants were a sticky, tangled web of bright bubblegum strands going in all directions. Harry sat quietly and watched. He couldn't believe his eyes. This made the trip even more interesting, he thought. Gus decided it was time for a rest and stopped near a small water tank and a huge shady tree. Captain Pete was still singing. "It's a happy, happy day. We're on our way. It's a happy day, a happy day, a happy, happy day. It's a happy, happy..." He stopped singing when he looked into the back of Gus. The sad expression on Mudpoo's face told the story. "It was the bubblegum," explained Mudpoo. "It came alive." With lots and lots of soapy water and a lot of scrubbing by Captain Pete, Mudpoo was slowly cleaned up. "Oh, I've learnt my lesson," said Mudpoo. "Bubblegum is not a toy to play with." And everyone nodded in agreement. Adventure 3, Mudpoo and the Giant Wave. It was a beautiful morning to be camped near the ocean. Harry and Mudpoo had slept in a tent near the edge of the red gum forest. Laughter and screams could be heard coming from the tent. Captain Pete got out of bed, stretched and yawned, and put the billy on. "Wheat bix and honey for breakfast," said Mudpoo and Harry together. Captain Pete looked stern. "Well, you can get breakfast ready for yourselves today," he said, trying to look as grumpy as possible. Without too much extra mess, Mudpoo and Harry prepared their own breakfast. "Let's go down to the rocks," said Harry, who wanted to scramble away at once. "Wait just a minute," said Captain Pete. "What about the washing up?" Looking as sad as they could, Mudpoo and Harry helped with the washing up. "There, that's better. Grab the fishing rods and let's go," said Captain Pete. In less than 1 minute, they'd walked to a beautiful beach with large rocks everywhere. "There's more rocks than yesterday," said Harry, a little surprised. "Oh, that's because the tide is out," said Captain Pete. Indeed, the tide was out. It had left hundreds of tiny rock pools filled with interesting sea creatures. Mudpoo and Harry carefully walked between the rocks, studying the rock pools. The rocks were often jagged, very slippery, and sometimes very difficult to cross. "Here's a nice big waterhole with little fish in it," cried Harry, very excited. Captain Pete dropped in a fishing line. They all watched as the fish played a game with the bait. No sooner was the hook in the water than a sneaky little fish would eat the bait without being caught. "Hey, cut that out," said Captain Pete as he fumbled to rebait the hook. He was so busy, he didn't notice that Harry and Mudpoo had walked to the very edge of the rocks where the ocean was gently lapping at their feet. "What's over there?" yelled Harry, pointing out to sea. Captain Pete looked up. "Well, that's the Pacific Ocean, and the next land is Chile in South America." "Is that far?" asked Harry. "Oh, it's a very long way," said Captain Pete. "It would take a month in a boat." "Wow, that's far," said Harry. By now, Captain Pete had realised Mudpoo and Harry were very close to the rocky edge. "Get back from the edge! Get back!" yelled Captain Pete urgently. Mudpoo and Harry came over at once. "Why? What's wrong?" they both asked, looking very surprised. "Well, I know the water looks calm, but every now and then the ocean gets quite dangerous with giant waves," said Captain Pete. "Oh, you mean like a secret wave?" said Mudpoo. Yes," Captain Pete replied. "Like that one?" said Harry, pointing to a giant wave heading towards the rocks. Captain Pete looked up and had less than 1 second to tightly hold Mudpoo and Harry as the giant wave washed over the rocks where they had been standing. The seawater washed over Captain Pete's wobbly knees as Mudpoo and Harry hung on. In a moment, the sea was calm again. "Now we know why it's dangerous to go too close to the edge of the rocks," said Mudpoo. Harry nodded his head in agreement. A secret wave almost washed them into the sea. From that day on, they were all a lot more careful. Adventure 4, Mudpoo and the Missing Kombi. The smell of adventure was in the air, and Gus was excited. Gus loved camping by the sea, but after 3 days at the camping ground, Gus was very keen to get moving again. Mudpoo and Harry were brushing their teeth. This seemed to take longer than usual. With all the packing to be done and the breakfast dishes to be washed, Captain Pete was patiently waiting for their help. "Right, Harry," said Captain Pete. "You'll finish packing the tent poles, and Mudpoo, you'll finish drying the breakfast dishes." Mudpoo thought for a moment. "Oh, I did the drying yesterday," he said rather hopefully. "Oh, that's great. So you've had good practice then," replied Captain Pete. Mudpoo looked at the breakfast dishes. I'll do them," he promised. I'll put them over here so I can see the beautiful birds." Mudpoo moved the box of wet cups and bowls and sat next to them, wishing they would simply dry themselves. Harry was helping Captain Pete to load Gus. It was a cheerful, steady job. They weren't in any hurry, though Gus was keen to go. Mudpoo decided that one more little walk to find one more interesting seashell seemed like a good idea. Everyone was so busy they didn't notice Mudpoo walking slowly towards the beach. As Mudpoo followed the sandy track, his eyes searched carefully for exciting, colourful shells. Mudpoo always found the best shells by carefully studying the ground. "In go the sleeping bags and the tent," said Captain Pete. "In go the folding chairs and the billy," said Harry. "Oh, we've got water in all our containers." Captain Pete checked Gus. "Oh, we've got oil in the engine and plenty of air in the tyres." "That's everything, isn't it?" asked Gus excitedly. "Jump in!" Harry and Captain Pete jumped in and closed the door, and away they went. With a roar and a cloud of dust, they were gone. At this very moment, Mudpoo decided he had found just enough shells and walked slowly back to camp. When he reached the camping spot, he rubbed his eyes. Everyone had gone, but not quite everything. The little box of dishes and the tea towel were still sitting near the tree, just where he had left them. Trying as hard as he could not to be worried, Mudpoo dried the dishes. The familiar roaring sound that Gus made could be heard coming over the hill. Inside sat a smiling Captain Pete and Harry. "Oh, you've done a wonderful job with those dishes," said Captain Pete. "How could we leave you behind?" Mudpoo, with both pockets full of seashells, grinned. He was so glad to see them that he promised to dry the dishes again tomorrow. "Oh, good for you, Mudpoo," said Captain Pete, and away they went on a new adventure. Adventure 5. Mudpoo and the Green Tree Snake. Slowly, Gus roared his way up the hilly, winding road. He knew when he reached the very top, he could stop for a rest. Mudpoo, Harry and Captain Pete were in Nambour in Queensland to visit their friend Liz. Kevin, Liz's Kombi, was parked in the driveway. He gave Gus a warm smile as he pulled in. "Yahoo! Yay! Yippee!" cried Mudpoo and Harry together. Everyone pulled out of Gus. A beaming Liz waved a cheery hello. "Oh, you must be exhausted. Come inside for a nice cool drink." It wasn't too long before Mudpoo and Harry wanted to go exploring. Harry was looking around the garden when he noticed something odd. George, Liz's cat, was sitting beneath a tree, grumbling to himself. He was staring up at the tree in the way that cats do when they're annoyed. Harry followed George's gaze, and so did Mudpoo. They saw something that made them run as fast as their legs could carry them, up the stairs and into the kitchen. "Excuse me, Liz," said Harry politely, as Mudpoo tumbled into him and almost knocking them both over. Harry knew he had to be polite, even if he had to interrupt. "Oh, what's the matter?" asked Liz, noticing the look of excitement on Harry's face. "There's a very large snake in your tree," said Harry. "And it's green!" exclaimed Mudpoo. "Ooh, it must be a python," smiled Liz excitedly. Everyone ran downstairs to the tree. It was a tall green tree that leant against the side of the house. There in the middle of the tree, moving gracefully through the branches, was a beautiful diamond python. The python had decided today was the day it would shed its winter coat. Meeting an angry George added more than enough excitement to an already busy day. "What is that?" asked Harry curiously. Captain Pete gently removed the snakeskin from a branch in the tree and held it out for everyone to see. This made George grumble even more. "It's so big," said Harry, watching the snake gracefully glide through the upper branches of Liz's tree. Mudpoo looked at the open window near the top of the tree. Whose room is that?" asked Mudpoo, a little concerned. "Ooh, that's the bathroom." Liz laughed. "Ha ha." He might go in there," said Mudpoo, trying not to sound worried. "Oh, as long as he cleans up after himself, he's very welcome," smiled Liz. "Oh, let's go upstairs and have fruit salad for lunch," said Captain Pete, whose tummy was starting to rumble almost as loud as George. Or, before you eat, wash your hands, said Liz. In the bathroom, Captain Pete, Harry and Mudpoo carefully kept one eye out for the green tree snake, just in case. Adventure 6, Mudpoo and the Secret Garden. Liz's garden was almost like most gardens. It had plenty of trees and bushes and even a little pond with goldfish. 2 goldfish peered up through the lilies, hoping they wouldn't be spotted. Mudpoo said to Harry, "Oh, look over there!" Harry raced over to where Mudpoo was pointing. "It's a secret path!" exclaimed Harry. Mudpoo and Harry ran up the stairs to ask Liz where the path went. "Oh, I've never been down that path," said Liz. And then she said, "Excuse me, I have to answer the phone." "A secret path," said Harry. "Oh, let's go and explore it," said Mudpoo. "Oh, I'd better come along," said Captain Pete. They were cautious as the path led into the rainforest. Mudpoo and Harry were wearing hats and long sleeves. Captain Pete was so excited, he forgot his hat. "Where does the path go?" whispered Mudpoo, a little concerned that strange and fearsome creatures could be lurking in the shadows. The further they walked, the thicker the rainforest became. Small forest bugs, spiders and vines became tangled in Captain Pete's hair. Harry looked a little concerned. "Do you think we're lost?" he asked. Everyone remained calm, as it's not easy to get lost in a friend's backyard. Mudpoo rubbed his chin and looked very thoughtful. "I know. Maybe we're on the wrong path, and we need to follow a different path," he suggested. After a minute of thinking, Mudpoo boldly walked in a different direction. Harry and Captain Pete looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and followed. "Look!" cried Mudpoo. "There's something over there!" Everyone rushed to see what it was. "What is it?" asked Harry. "It's an old Hills Hoist clothesline, covered in jungle vines," said Captain Pete in surprise. "It hasn't been used for years." "A clothesline is never too far from the house," said Mudpoo thoughtfully. "So we're not lost anymore?" inquired Harry. "Hooray! I can see daylight!" shouted Mudpoo as the safety of Liz's backyard appeared. "What an adventure!" exclaimed Mudpoo. "That's enough adventures for today," said Harry. Captain Pete didn't say a word. He was busily shaking the spiders, bugs and forest litter from his hair, as he was the only one who hadn't worn a hat. They climbed up the stairs again, looking a little exhausted. Liz had just put down the phone as they walked in. Said Liz, "it's a bit of a jungle behind my garden. I would be careful if you go in there." Harry, Mudpoo and Captain Pete glanced knowingly at each other. They knew she was right. Adventure 7, Mudpoo and the Turning Tide. "Look, all the water is gone," said Harry. Mudpoo, Harry, Liz and Captain Pete were looking over Harvey Bay. The tide was out. Where the sea had been was now a very large area of sand. "Oh, let's go for a walk to the water," said Captain Pete. Everyone had a beach towel and a hat. Captain Pete had a backpack that held some drinks, food and a bottle of sunscreen. "Oh, there are so many holes in the sand," said Mudpoo. "Oh, they're all made by crabs," said Captain Pete. "There's one," said Harry. Everyone watched as the little crab scurried from side to side. It quickly disappeared down a little hole. There was no dry sand, just soft, wet, muddy sand that would squeeze between your toes if you stood in one place for too long. When they reached the sea, Liz put down her thongs, and so did everyone else. They carefully placed their towels and thongs on the soft, muddy sand. "Let's go for a walk," said Mudpoo. Great idea, said Harry.
Oh, look over there.
Said Captain Pete.
Oh, it's a blowfish.
The little fish had seen Harry and Mudpoo and made himself the size of a small balloon. The little fish looked like a small ball as he bobbed up and down. We'd better leave him alone. He looks scared, said Liz. Captain Pete felt wonderful walking along the water's edge, feeling the mud ooze between his toes and feeling the fresh sea breeze on his face. As Captain Pete looked back at the bay, he thought something looked a bit odd.
Oh, let's head back to the beach towels,
he said. Where are our towels? Said Liz, looking at the spot in the distance where she thought they were. I'm sure they were over there. Captain Pete strained his eyes to see. The only thing I can see is water. The tide is coming in, said Liz.
Oh, quick everyone, we've got to save our things,
said Captain Pete. Everyone ran to where they had last seen the beach towels. The only thing they could see was water. Look, over there, shouted Harry excitedly. It's my beach towel. They all looked to where Harry was pointing, and sure enough, there was Harry's towel, half floating and half sinking in the water. Captain Pete rolled up his trouser legs and waded out up to his knees. He rescued Harry's towel. Over there! Shouted Mudpoo. It's my thong! Bobbing up and down in the water was Mudpoo's favourite thong. Soon Captain Pete had collected a thong belonging to Liz and a big thong that was his. He found another 3 very soggy beach towels that were very, very heavy. He collected another thong belonging to Liz, and then he found another big thong.
Oh, now there's only one thong missing,
said Captain Pete. It's my thong, and I can see it, shouted Mudpoo. Bobbing up and down in the distance like a little boat was Mudpoo's thong.
Oh, there now, I've rescued everything. Let's have a picnic on the grass near the trees,
said Captain Pete. Everyone agreed they had to be much more careful not to be caught by the turning tide again. Adventure 8, Mudpoo and the Secret Rock. With a huge smile, Gus said, This is the place! Yippee! Hooray! Cried everyone. They all stumbled out of Gus and looked around.
Oh, this is the perfect place to set up camp,
said Captain Pete.
It's a nice camping area. Oh, with a fireplace and a spot for the tent and shady trees to keep away the hot sun.
Everyone helped to set up camp. I wonder what this place is called, asked Harry curiously.
Bunjalong National Park,
said Captain Pete. The sea is right over there, said Harry, pointing towards it down the track. Mudpoo's eyes lit up. Can we go? Said Harry and Mudpoo, jumping together with joy. Everyone, except Gus, walked to the beach. It was a beautiful beach with lots of sand and strange shells, sticks and seaweed. Mudpoo loved the beach, and he loved finding things. He would walk slowly, carefully studying everything. Hurry up, Mudpoo! Yelled Harry, as he was so keen to see what he could find further up the beach. Captain Pete, Liz and Harry scrambled through the rocks. Mudpoo was busy, carefully selecting every shell he wanted to keep. He always found the best shells. He was so busy studying his seashells that he didn't notice that the rock he was standing on began to move. Maybe it wasn't a rock. 1,000,000 years ago, a baby triceratops had fallen asleep, and as Mudpoo walked on its back, he woke it up. Mudpoo wasn't afraid. He knew that a triceratops was a friendly dinosaur. Harry, Liz and Captain Pete were in so much of a hurry to explore that Mudpoo was a small spot far away, waving to them.
Oh, we'd better go back to him,
said Captain Pete, looking a little concerned. As Harry and Captain Pete came up close to Mudpoo, he yelled, Look! I'm sitting on a triceratops! The baby triceratops didn't want to be seen, so it remembered what it had been doing to hide for over 1,000,000 years and went back to sleep looking like a rock again. "That's not a Triceratops, that's a rock," said Harry.
But it certainly looks like a Triceratops-shaped rock,"
said Captain Pete. Mudpoo smiled. He didn't mind, because he'd already found the best shells and a starfish. Perhaps if you go there one day, the Triceratops will be there, sleeping, waiting for someone like you to wake him up. Adventure 9. Mudpoo and the Whale Spotting Boat. There was something special in the air this morning. It wasn't Christmas Eve or somebody's birthday. Somehow, today felt very special. They all felt a happy, bubbling feeling. Today, everyone was going out on a boat in Hervey Bay, a very special whale spotting boat. Very, very early, at 6 o'clock in the morning, everyone was up and wide awake, ready for breakfast. "Have you ever seen a whale?" Harry asked Mudpoo. Mudpoo shook his head, but he knew they were very, very big as a huge truck. Liz, Mudpoo, Harry and Captain Pete hurried off to catch the little bus that would take them to the boat. "Good morning," smiled the driver. "Great morning for spotting whales." Each time the bus stopped, a few more people would get on. Everyone was talking excitedly about whales as the little bus rumbled toward the wharf. At the dock, there were many boats of all shapes and sizes. Some were sleek and shiny. Some looked fast and swish. Mudpoo saw a boat that looked like, just like a happy old fishing boat that needed a coat of paint. "All aboard!" called out the skipper of the happy little boat. All the excited passengers from the little bus climbed aboard. "Over here!" cried Dave, the first mate, in a big, booming voice, and all the passengers gathered at the front of the boat.
"This is a life jacket,"
said the skipper, holding up a bright yellow vest.
"This is how you put it on."
Everyone listened carefully. "Excuse me," said Mudpoo, waving his hand. The skipper looked at Mudpoo crossly.
"What do you want?"
said the skipper, who hated to be interrupted. "Do you have life jackets for small people?" asked Mudpoo.
"Oh, a fair question,"
said the skipper, and he quickly found 2 smaller life jackets, one for Mudpoo and one for Harry. "Toot toot!" went the boat, and they slowly moved away from the dock. Harry and Mudpoo sat near the front. The boat wasn't even 10 metres from the wharf when Harry cried out, "Look! A turtle!" A huge sea turtle raised his head just before diving under the water. The boat was called the Princess too. It was the first whale spotting boat to leave the harbour. Being older, slower, and not as shiny as the other boats in the harbour, the skipper and the first mate had a clever plan to get close to the whales. After 10 minutes out at sea, the skipper yelled out, "Whale ho! Humpback whale ahead!" Everyone was so excited and strained to see the whale's tail flipping and waving in the distance. The skipper stopped the boat and turned the engine off. Dave, the first mate, came over to all the passengers.
"If you want the whale to come over to us, you all need to sing a song,"
he said with a big toothy grin. Everyone looked a bit uncertain. Mudpoo said, "I'll sing," and started to sing a happy song so all the words could be heard by all the whales in the distance. It's a happy, happy day, a happy, happy day. To everyone's amazement, a humpback whale swam towards the boat. When he reached the boat, he slowly raised his head out of the water and looked straight at the surprised passengers. Mudpoo kept singing, and soon everyone joined in. There were 3 whales swimming around the boat, happily listening to the singing passengers. All of the other fast and shiny boats from the wharf were now watching from a distance with amazement. Mudpoo and the passengers of the little old fishing boat were singing songs to happy humpback whales. Adventure 10, Mudpoo and the Humpback Whales. Mudpoo loved to sing. Today he was singing to humpback whales. There were 3 huge humpbacks swimming around the boat. Sometimes they swam under the boat. Sometimes they lay back, flipping their pectoral fins in time to the singing. Mudpoo, Harry, Liz and Captain Pete sang. Everyone on the boat sang too, including the skipper and Dave, the first mate. The humpbacks had huge pectoral fins that splashed in the water. Splash, 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 as the passengers sang. Da 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 dum dum, dum dum, dum dum, da 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 dum dum, dum dum, dum dum. Every now and again, a humpback whale would lift his enormous head out of the water to look at the people inside the boat. Harry leaned over the boat's rail and almost touched the whale. Captain Pete and Liz leaned over the boat's rail and almost touched the whale too. Dave, the first mate, leaned over the boat's rail as far as he could, and he touched the humpback whale.
Oh, feels the same as poking your finger into the cheek of your mouth,
he exclaimed excitedly. Mudpoo leaned over the boat's rail just as a huge whale popped his head up. Gave him a fright, and his hat tumbled into the sea. "My hat!" cried Mudpoo. It was floating in the sea near the humpback whale.
Oh, we can't reach it,
cried Captain Pete. "Let me try," said Harry, who couldn't reach it either. It was Mudpoo's favourite hat. Everyone watched the hat bobbing up and down on the water as a huge humpback whale swam over to it. To everyone's amazement, it gently picked up the hat and swam towards the boat. Mudpoo held his breath. Everyone on board held their breath. The huge humpback whale gently lifted his giant head near the side of the boat and passed the hat to Mudpoo.
Ooh! Oh! Ooh!
Cried everyone with surprise. Mudpoo calmly popped the hat back on his head. "Thank you, Humpback," said Mudpoo with a huge grin. The whale swam around the boat. "Toot toot!" blew the skipper on his whistle. "Chugga chugga 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 chug!" went the happy old fishing boat. The whales loved listening to the singing. Da 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 dum dum, dum dum, dum dum, da 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 dum dum, dum dum, dum dum, sang the passengers. With a wave of their enormous tails, the 3 humpback whales swam out to sea. It was almost time for lunch.
Billy Tea and damper!
Yelled Dave, the first mate. Everyone crowded into the cabin, where they were greeted by the beautiful smell of fresh tea and damper. Their whale adventures had made all of the passengers hungry. Mudpoo and Harry were bubbling over with excitement because they had been singing to 3 enormous humpback whales. Now they had wonderful adventure stories to tell their friends, just like Captain Pete. A few months later, far, far away, a quiet fishing boat was sailing near the icy cold waters of Antarctica. A pod of happy humpback whales swam by. The fishing boat's crew and skipper were surprised at what they saw. Very surprised. It wasn't the whale's size that surprised them. It was the whales singing.
Now, how on earth did they learn to sing like that?
Said the puzzled fishing boat captain, scratching his head.
Oh, we can never tell anyone because no one would ever believe us,
said the crew. Maybe, if they read The True Adventures of Mudpoo, like you did, they will understand why. Perhaps the whales are still singing today. What do you think? I've enjoyed sharing our adventure with you. Australia is a truly wonderful place to explore and to have exciting adventures. It's a beautiful land of colours. Always remember, with a little inspiration, determination and creativity, anything is possible. I hope you get to live your dreams. I've got a secret, a land I've just seen. It's far down south, travel with me. Dance with the brogers, laugh with the people. Walk through the ogres, let the lights surround you.
Sharing the secret, golden sand beaches, oceans of color, place you can reach.
In a true Aussie bar, feel the colours surround you. Warm-hearted greetings to those from afar. Suntan fine faces, a life full of colour. People are glowing, a place that you can reach.
Bright stars and deserts, mountain streams flowing, absorbing the colors. Excitement is growing.
Australia, 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 Australia. Come to Australia, share in the secret, safe in the harbour, colour your dreams. My secret island, I've seen the colours. I love Australia. In Australia, live your dreams.
In Australia, live your dreams. In Australia, live your dreams. In Australia, live your dreams.
In Australia, live your dreams. See ya!